Again, when you've got the legacy media acknowledging that Trump did something right, you know he did something pretty incredible. There are some Democrats who actually have been making the right sounds about all of this. John Fetterman, you would expect to make the right sounds, and he has the senator from Pennsylvania who's been shockingly good on a wide variety of issues, actually. Here he was yesterday celebrating President Trump's diplomatic victory following the Israeli military victory.
Do you think the president deserves the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I mean, if this sticks, I think the whole point of having a Nobel Peace Prize is for ending wars and promoting peace. And now I'm going to make a direct appeal to the president. You know, I hope he chooses to provide the tomahawks to the Ukrainians, too, and give them the tools that they need to push back against Russia. And if he brings the Ukrainian war to its end, I'll be the Democrat leading the committee for his Nobel Prize Peace for ending both of these terrible wars.
Okay, so again, he happens to be correct about that. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, he came out and said this was a step in the right direction. Again, Democrats are sort of dipping their toe into the water of rationality here.
It's a very, very positive step in the right direction. We're all hopeful that this agreement will be finalized, that the hostages will be released in a matter of days and returned home to their loved ones. Of course, that we can surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza to alleviate the pain and suffering that Palestinian civilians have been experiencing in the theater of war for the last 2 years, and that we can achieve not just a ceasefire, but a pathway toward a just and lasting peace for both Israel and the Palestinian people.
And Representative Dan Goldman, who of course is a Democrat, in fact, a Democrat who's involved in the impeachment of President Trump, he admits Joe Biden did not actually get any pressure from Qatar or Turkey. This, of course, is true. Then the fact is that Joe Biden was not willing to do all of the things that I just talked about that Trump did. Provide open and clear support, both rhetorically and in terms of unmitigated weaponry to the Israelis to win the war. He did not provide Israel with the capacity to do the things it had to do militarily. He tried to play, quote unquote, honest broker. He tried to slow walk his left wing. And he didn't pressure Qatar or Turkey to actually end the war in any serious way. Now, here is Representative Goldman admitting that.
I think the biggest problem that the President Biden had is there was no pressure from Qatar, from Turkey, from Egypt. They were actually facilitating in many ways what was going on. And that is really ultimately how it all came together.
So, I mean, but I think by saying that, it's sort of an acknowledgement Trump has changed that dynamic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think
absolutely.
that.
I mean, he's clearly.
I don't know how he,
changed
you know, and I think there's a lot that remains to learn about what prompted that change. But I do agree, yes.
I mean, again, the thing that prompted that change is President Trump actually applying pressure and Joe Biden not doing that. In much the same way that there were people who were saying that Trump was sort of just a tool of the Qataris, but Joe Biden was actually going to be the one who stood up. Well, it turns out, you remember, that they said that Donald Trump was the tool of the Russians, but it was Joe Biden who was the guy who was presiding when there was an invasion of Ukraine. Again, the conventional wisdom tends to get it wrong an awful lot. Even some of the legacy media are acknowledging that President Trump did something unbelievable here. The Washington Post's David Ignatius admitted that Trump accomplished here what no one else could have.
The deal that President Trump is announcing played a key part in negotiating is a significant change. This war was blocked for 2 years. President Biden, who preceded him, was unable to find a way to stop it. President Trump found that way by being tough on both sides. And he'll take a victory lap for sure over the next few days, but it's deserved. There's no way that I can see that this would have been done without Trump's pressure in the final hours.
Hey, again, when you got the legacy media acknowledging that Trump did something right, you know he did something pretty incredible. We'll get some more on this in a moment. First, picture this. You walk over to your computer, you pull up your entire browsing history, you hit print, and then you nail those pages to your front door so everybody can see it. Well, that would be an insane thing to do, no? Well, that's essentially what happens every single day unless you protect yourself with ExpressVPN. See, here's the thing most people don't realize. Your internet provider can see every single website you've ever visited, even when you're browsing in incognito mode. In many countries, they're actually required to keep detailed logs of your online activity for years, just in case the government wants to take a look. And if you're in the U.S., it gets even worse, because ISPs can literally sell your personal browsing data to whomever they want. Now, you can't stop your ISP from trying to collect that information, but you can make sure they never get it in the first place. That's where ExpressVPN comes in. It encrypts all your online activity before it even reaches your internet provider, turning their logs into complete gibberish. I use ExpressVPN literally all the time. I mean, like all the time, because I'm on public Wi-Fi or I'm traveling or there are people trying to hack. Plus, it's simple to use. Just tap on any device. One tap, phone, laptop, tablet, whatever. You know your privacy is now completely locked down. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by heading on over to expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Meanwhile, ABC's Martha Raddatz acknowledges this is a remarkable achievement.
Tell us about the role President Trump played in bringing all of this about.
Well, Robin, there's no question that if this goes as planned, if we see those remaining hostages freed and Israel begin its withdrawal, it is a remarkable achievement, and President Trump most certainly deserves credit for his role. He has done this through diplomacy, pressure, and the sheer force of his personality and persistence. He dispatched diplomats again and again, made threats just in the last few days to Hamas, saying again if they did not sign the deal, all hell would break loose. And they had the bombing of Iran as an example of that. But perhaps most importantly, he pushed Benjamin Netanyahu in ways his predecessor and others have not, Robin.
Okay, that last part is just so ridiculous. The idea that Trump was pushing Netanyahu harder than Biden is totally insane. Like, totally crazy. Totally crazy. But the rest of it, she's got right. And the fact is the president and the prime minister work very closely together. I know there are a bunch of people who want to leak to Barack Ravid every bad thing about Netanyahu, and Barack Ravid at Axios is perfectly happy to print all of it. But then the president comes out routinely and debunks all of it. In any case, the overall there is correct. That it was the last 2 years of military force that pushed over all of the dominoes that led to this moment, brokered by President Trump. CNN's Abby Phillip. She says, listen, when it comes to the rebuilding of Gaza, maybe Trump can do it.
I mean, but do you think President Trump is somebody who can actually credibly rebuild? I mean, he just frankly likes building, and it might be a kind of absurd thought, but in a way, I mean, this is going to be a rebuilding project, not
Absolutely.
just perhaps some kind of nation building, society building, but like physically rebuilding the complete and utter devastation of Gaza. Trump actually really wants to be involved in that, and maybe he's the right person.
Yeah, so, again, even members of the media recognizing the magic of Trump in this particular region of the world. CNN's Jeremy Diamond says this is an enormous moment for the region, and it absolutely is. And the possibility of opening up further negotiations brokered by President Trump, a world has opened up in the Middle East in which Iran does not bestride the region. It is more like Israel and the United States and its allies bestriding the region. A world has opened up in which the Palestinian issue does not threaten the rest of the region's peace, stability, and economic development. That is a Trumpian world. It just is. Here's CNN's Jeremy Diamond.
Yeah, I just need to underscore what an enormous moment this is for so many people in this region, for the people of Gaza who have endured 2 years of war, for the families of these 48 remaining hostages who have endured 2 years of absolute agony. This is a watershed moment. President Trump announcing that the first phase of this plan will indeed move forward.
Okay, so, again, it is an amazing, amazing moment for the region. Now, I do have a question. Where are all the people who kept yelling about genocide? Where did they go? Like, seriously, where did they go? Because all the people who are screaming about genocide, now a deal is on the table that stops all of this, that frees hostages, that stops the bombing campaign in Gaza, that rolls back the Israeli military presence to a decided upon line. And they've all ghosted the internet. They're gone. They disappeared. Poof, they're just gone. It's kind of amazing. Now, you would imagine that if you spent 2 years fighting against an actual genocide, not a fake genocide like what's happening in Gaza, which is not by any stretch of the imagination or any definition ever a genocide, but imagine that you were fighting like a real genocide, like the Rwandan genocide, and a deal happened to stop the genocide. And then all the people who were fighting to stop it just disappeared. They didn't say anything. They didn't celebrate. They didn't say this is a good thing. They didn't give credit. They didn't try to, like, nothing. They just go totally silent. What might that tell you about those people? I mean, the first thing would be that they don't actually care about the supposed genocide, right? That would be the thing that would immediately pop to mind, that you didn't care about that it was all a lie, that you actually had another reason that you were doing this routine. The Washington Free Beacon has an excellent rundown of many of the so-called anti-genocide activists who have gone completely missing, like completely MIA. Mehdi Hassan over at MSNBC, right, former MSNBC personality, who now spends his days on the internet talking with wild lefties and people who like Marjorie Taylor Greene, as we'll get to in a moment. He put out a statement, "I love that we live in a world where we're all supposed to now praise Trump for his peacemaking and ignore the fact that at least 20,000 Palestinians have been killed on his watch with bombs and bullets and rhetorical support that he supplied to Israel." I mean, Mehdi seems pretty salty about the fact that Trump actually got to the end of this thing. He then went on to predict that Israel will violate the terms of the deal and all the rest. Like, not a moment of credit for Trump. Instead, no. We're supposed to be upset with Trump that the things that were necessary to get to the peace happened. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.